Hi, this is Jason Jensen with Baker Street Systems. Today I'm going to be going over how to deploy a Laravel website to a CentOS server. This is a little unscripted, so we might come across a few errors or bugs, or not bugs, but a few errors that will have to resolve. So this is as real as I can make it, so please forgive me if we come across something that I'll have to troubleshoot. Um, so just to give you some background, I'm actually using one of our servers. It's the we call it the transcoder server. It's transcoder.coresaver.com, and this server is running CentOS version 6. I've just upgraded it to use PHP version 5.6 point whatever the latest version is um, that I can run on CentOS 6. Um, if you if you're curious on how to do that with CentOS 6, because it doesn't do it by default, you have to go through a few steps. I've recorded another video with details on how to upgrade to PHP 5.6 in CentOS 6. Um, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to be deploying a video transcoder. And so first things first, I'm in the var dub directory. I've gone ahead and logged in, by the way. I'm logged in as a super user root right now, and I'm going to go ahead and make a directory. Oops, just actually I'll start at the very beginning. So I'm going to go to var dub, and I'm same place, but now I'm going to make a directory called videos.coursesaver.com, and then I'm going to cd uh, into that directory. Now we use Git, which is a version control system, in order to make sure that we get everything. We keep track of all of our changes. I'm just going to show you this. I use Bitbucket often, or GitHub. Those are my two favorites. I use Bitbucket a lot for private things because you're allowed unlimited free repositories. As long as you don't have too many people working on it at the same time. And in this one, I just have myself working on this particular repository. So I'm going to go ahead and clone it via HTTPS, and that's the script that I need to run. So I'm going to go back to my command line and go ahead and paste that in. So this is the password for my Git account, not necessarily for the server. And then it's going to go ahead and download it. While it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and load up a program called Transmit. Now, Transmit, all it is just it's an FTP client. So you can see that I've loaded it up. I'm in the videos.coresaver.com directory, and you see that this is now completed. It's downloaded all of the repository. Now, one thing that you'll notice for the way that I do my repositories is I have an extra. I made it so that there's an extra folder in here. I like it when this is directly in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and then delete this because that folder is empty now. So now we have our Laravel application. And we have our Git folder, which stores information of the version control stuff that we use. And first things first, with a Laravel application, I'm going to go ahead and do composer install to install all of the dependencies. It looks like we don't have. That is because I haven't cd'd into the Laravel directory. Now, if we try that same thing again, we're installing all of the dependencies for this particular app, and then it's going to run its optimization stuff and compiling and caching and whatnot. So now we've installed all of the dependencies. The next thing that we need to do is we're going to make the storage directory writable. So in order to do that, you'll see that the storage directory has permissions only for root to be able to write to it. And so what we're going to do is do a chmod, and then that's a recursive function. So it's going to do everything within that folder, and then all of the subfolders and all the sub-subfolders and so on. And we're going to make it, for now, I'm going to put 777, just so we can get the site up and running. Once we come back to this, I like doing 775, so that the owner and the group both have complete access to that particular folder. But for now, like I said, I'm just going to do 777 storage, and that will make it so that anything and everything can write to the storage directory, and that's important for Laravel because that's where you have your cache, and that's where you have a whole bunch of things that, and this particular application, that's where a lot of the video files get put while they're being processed. So the next thing that we need to do to set things up is to install something called Supervisor. Now, Supervisor it has to do with the Laravel queuing system, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is just the Laravel documentation page where it talks about queues or jobs. You know, that Laravel calls them jobs, and it uses Supervisor to run those jobs. And so you'll read in the documentation about how you can have just via the command line, you can do like PHP artisan, I think it's QUE, QUEUE, and then listen, and that will run the oops. Oh, hey. We will come back to this, okay? Anyway, to run the jobs, the queue listener, you can do this, but that's kind of a temporary solution. And in order to make it more permanent and automatic, if you happen to reboot your server, you can use something called Supervisor to run your queue listener and keep it running. And in case anything breaks, or if in case you have a server reboot or anything, Supervisor is the kind of program that will make it so that that particular job always gets run. And so the instructions on the Laravel website are more applicable to Ubuntu, which is what I tend to use most of the time for most of my servers. However, every now and then we come across a CentOS server that we have to use, and in that case the instructions are a little bit different, which is part of the reason why I'm recording this. So in order to set up Supervisor on a CentOS system, I like following the directions found here on alphadevx.com and installing Supervisor and Superlance on CentOS. So the instructions here are pretty good. I'm just going to go ahead and follow them almost word for word. We're going to set up the Python tools, and then as soon as that's ready, we'll install the Supervisor. Okay, then let's check out Supervisor, check out the version, make sure we're good. So yeah, it's installed and we're running 3.3.0. Then let's see, we're going to do this particular command will give us a default Supervisor configuration file, and then let's see, this is something that will make it so that whenever the system restarts, it will automatically start up Supervisor. And so I'm just going to go ahead and, like the instructions say, I'm actually going to do this, which is the same as this. I'm going to go ahead and edit this file, and then I'm going to paste all of this in. Okay, so I just did command copy and then command paste. And then I'm going to do Control O to overwrite, and then Control X to exit nano. Okay, then like this guy says, I'm going to go ahead and chmod this so that it can be run. Then we'll now have access to the following commands like this. So let's go ahead and try this. Yeah, Supervisor is up and running. Now, Superlance is a set of additional plugins. I don't necessarily need this, but if you want, you can go ahead and install Superlance as well. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave this off. Okay. But now that we have Supervisor installed, we're going to go ahead and edit the configuration file and add what we call a program to monitor our Laravel app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and scroll all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to add this. Okay, so I'm going to let you read this for a little bit, but what this is essentially saying, this first line names the particular program. So if we have multiple websites with multiple apps, I'm going to sneeze just a second. Excuse me, sorry about that. So if we have multiple programs or multiple apps, we'll have one of these first lines for each one of them. So I could paste the same thing over again down below and just change the program name if I ever wanted to. And then we'll have the command that it's supposed to be checking being run every second, just to see if there's any work to do. In this case, oh, you know what? I cut out by accident the rest of this, so it should be a little bit longer. It should be something like this. So let's do queue work. Sorry about that. But the only difference now is on this particular application, I'm going to be using a database queuing system. SQS is something that Amazon offers, and then you can also use Redis. All the documentation for doing that is on the Laravel website. But for simplicity, I just need a database queuing system. It doesn't have to be super fast, and there aren't that many jobs that get rendered. It's just the jobs that it does have to handle are pretty big jobs. So database will work just fine. Then auto start true. Yep. User is AJ Hulls. That's the username of what I normally log into this server as. And then this is just where you put the log file, where if anything fails or if you want to know what's going on with your queued jobs, this is where it will record everything that goes out. So that looks good to me. And so we're going to go ahead and write it out by pressing Control O and then Control X to exit. Then it's important to do this. I got to find the command in the Laravel documentation real quick. So here we go. We got to reread the configuration file. You see that it found that this is available. By the way, if I run that again, oh, it does say it. And then we're going to do update. Okay. Then let's go ahead and do sudo restart. Okay. So we should be up and running with Supervisor, and it should be running our Laravel queue listener. So that's one of the things that we've had to do. The other thing that we need to do is Laravel comes with a command scheduler. So if we do command, actually let's do schedule. Let's see if they have a, nope. Let's try CRON. This isn't what we want either. Let's do, I can't believe they don't have commands. Where the heck do I find it? Here we go. This is it. So Laravel has task scheduling, and what this does is it actually runs Laravel commands according to a schedule. For example, every minute, every 5 minutes, every day, every month. Um, but in order to set that up, so I have several commands set up in the Laravel application um, that depend on uh, a cron job to run them. Now, rather than doing a cron entry for every single command that I want to have run and every single schedule, Laravel makes it pretty easy by allowing me to define the schedule within the Laravel kernel, and then I just run. Uh, I have one cron tab entry, and so to edit the cron jobs for this particular server, I'm going to do cron tab dash e, and this is Vim or VI, the editor, and I always forget how to run everything. But I do know a few commands. Okay, so the commands that you need to know are Shift and then, well, just the colon. That will give you the command line, so you can type whatever you want here. But right now, if I just exit out of that, um, th I'm in the insert mode, or right now this is the read mode. Um, so if I'm in the read mode, I can't edit anything, but until I convert it over to insert. So um, what I want to do is do the colon. Actually, I want to do I for insert mode. I just typed in I, and then I'm going to paste in uh, this command. So what this means is it will run it every minute of every day, and it will run this command. And remember what I was talking about, the schedule run. Inside of Laravel, I have several different commands with different schedules each. Um, and so if you're ever curious, you can look at the repository for the video processor to see what I'm talking about. But uh, this will just, and then it'll run this schedule, Laravel scheduler, and then all of the logic of when to run the individual commands will be run on the Laravel level rather than the system cron job level, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this. In order to do that, I'm going to do the colon, uh, and then I'm going to do W, which stands for write to the file, which is basically saving it, and then Q, which stands for quit. So execute those two commands as soon as I press enter, and I just pressed enter. So now it's run. Uh, it's So one more thing we need to do is go ahead and import our database content and structure from our development environment into the production server. And I like just doing that via a client like this. I just create a SQL dump file and then re-import it onto the production server. And so to show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead and create it. So I'm on the transcoding server, the server that we're deploying this to. And I'm going to go ahead and add a database. And this one is going to be called CS, I think it's video processor is what I called it before. I like using UTF-8 because that allows for a lot of weird characters like with accents or umlauts or whatever. So let's go ahead and add it. Then, before I do anything else, I like to add the user. And in this case, let's see, let me find what I've been using. But forgive me, I'm going to do this off screen so that I don't share with the world the username and password of everything that of my server. So I don't mind sharing the username though. It's just going to be, we're going to create a new user, and it's going to be video processor, and then the password is there. Then we're going to go to schema privileges and give this particular user everything. And what that does is we created a new user for MySQL, and then we just granted that particular user only access to this particular database. We want to like modularize all of our users so that if ever one database gets compromised, it doesn't compromise the rest of the databases on this particular server. So now that we have our user set up and our database set up, let's go ahead and import it. I'm going to go ahead and do that off screen as well. But it's just you just got to, pretty much click on your SQL file that you exported from your development environment. So let me go ahead and do that. And all right, so I've gone ahead and imported it. And so this is all of the tables for this particular app. Then what I need to do is go back into my control panel, and I'm going to go ahead and create a .env file. Now this .env file, you should have this on your development site, but this is what houses all of your passwords and your configuration stuff that you don't necessarily want in your Git version control. And so that's why whenever you deploy, you'll have a different .env file. And so I'm going to create one just in the root directory of Laravel. I'm going to just do nano.env. Okay, and then this is where you'll paste in stuff like your database host and database username and password, and your mail driver and your API stuff and all that kind of stuff, and your application key and encryption keys and stuff like that. If you ever are curious, I'm just going to go ahead, and this is the default stuff that ships with Laravel. This is just an example of an env file and what might be in there. Now I'm going to do this off screen. I'm just going to paste in the real values from what I've been working with, and as well as a few other configuration keys. And then I'm going to write it and then save it. And so I've saved it. So now to wrap up, you remember that we've been logged in as root this entire time, and I typically don't work this way. I usually log in as another user, and then if I need to ever get root privileges, I just use sudo access. But one thing that we did while logged in as root is downloaded all the files and everything for this app. What I'd like to do now is go ahead and change the owner of the files, and then change a few of the folder permissions. So if I show you this, you'll see that everything here is owned by root and then associated with the group root. But what I want to do is go here and then change the owner to, and we're going to do this recursively, to AJ Halls, and then actually let's do it Halls with an S, and then Apache. Now Apache is the user that the Apache web server uses to run things, and so I always like to give Apache the as the group name for my app, because that way I can assign permissions just for the group level access as opposed to the everybody access. And if that doesn't make sense, we'll get to it. I'll show you what I mean in just a little bit. So the chown to AJ Halls, and we're going to do this recursively, and we're going to make it for the videos, the entire directory and all subdirectories. Now if I go into here, you'll see that now AJ Halls owns it, and then with the group Apache. If I go into Laravel, same thing, AJ Halls, and then Apache. Now this is what I was talking about earlier, where we can change the permissions a little bit. If you remember, earlier we made the permissions for the storage directory as 777, which typically I don't like to do anything 777 permissions. So what I'd like to do is do ch mod, and we'll do this recursively, and we're going to do 775 for storage. And what this will do is it gives full write access, read, write, execute to AJ Halls, and it gives full read, write access to Apache, so that Apache can write to, the storage folder and cache things and execute things and whatever. But it gives limited permissions to everybody else. And that's the permission that I like to use on storage directory. So now let's go ahead and see if this loads up. This will eventually be videos.coresaver.com, but the subdomain route hasn't quite resolved yet, and so I plugged it in to make it work with transcoder.coresaver.com, just so we can make sure that the site's up and running. And of course, this is a pretty generic front page. This will probably change in the future, but the process of deploying a website to production has just been illustrated, and hopefully it's been educational. But this is how you deploy a website on CentOS with Laravel as your framework. As always, you can get a hold of me if you need to at jj@bakerstreetsystems.com, or subscribe. Thanks.